Hello everyone, welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, first episode in this new format I got here. And today I am accompanied by yet another booktuber, Matt from Matt's Book Reviews. How you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome. How you doing?
I'm doing alright, just it's been kind of crazy today, but managed to get settled down.
Awesome. Yeah, always nice to get to the end of the work week.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Yeah, my parents are in like this golf tournament, so I've been kind of, driving them around. So that's always fun.
Nice.
But yeah, you run a YouTube channel. You talk about books. And you talk about. Do you really talk about them like right after you really record videos, like right after you finish them, like just like your first initial thoughts, or do you like kind of make bullet points?
No, so I always so I only can record late at night. So
I
after
see.
my family goes to sleep. And so what I do is if I'm reading throughout the day or in the morning and I get close to the end of the book, I'll stop reading. And
Hmm.
then I'll save my spot, 5 or so pages till the end. Then after everybody goes to sleep, I'll set up my camera and then hit record, and then I'll finish up. I'll probably record for like 5 minutes or so before I start talking. So it is actually me finishing up, you know, but I will have to prematurely stop reading in the middle of the day sometimes if I get towards the end.
That's interesting. I just find it interesting because when I record stuff, I tend to I like to sit on it and make bullet points. Because when I do it off the cuff, it just sounds like I'm rambling. And
Yeah, I mean, when I started my channel, I didn't want to just do it for no reason. I wanted to be different,
mm,
and I felt like I wanted somebody to do what I'm doing, and nobody was really doing it. And I thought, I can, I'm comfortable talking. I talk, you know, in public for my job all the time, and you know, I'm not somebody that likes to do a lot of prep for that kind of stuff, and I didn't want to spend a lot of time, prepping things out and editing and all that stuff. So I thought, let me put my words into action.
well, I was gonna say that's impressive if you could just do that off the cuff. Because I mean, I know that's hard for some people. Sometimes even me. I'm not terrible at speaking on camera. Because I started running a booktube channel as well. Because I did, and then I stopped. Because and now I'm like I do it every. Well, we're talking on Friday, so I'm probably gonna record my new video after this. So, I do them on Wednesdays and Fridays. So, yeah.
Nice.
hmm
Yeah, I mean, for my job, I've always had to do a lot of impromptu speaking.
What is your
So
job, if you don't mind my asking?
so I work in politics.
Oh,
I'm a chief of staff for a politician.
oh,
Um, and so I regularly have to, a group will come in and I have to randomly just start talking to them about any random subject, or have to get up and give a speech about something, or without any prep. And so I definitely have had a lot of life in my career doing no prep talking.
do you have a Wikipedia page? Since
I
you're
don't. I do not.
you do not.
No.
um, are you? Would it be invasive if I asked you you're from California? I saw you wear a 49ers jacket in one of your videos.
No, I am. I'm from a suburb of Sacramento.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Northern California.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'm from
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
you probably
So
you're probably not too happy with my team over the last couple of
yeah,
years.
no. You guys are like our kryptonite for whatever reason. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, the Niners have their own kryptonite, but Cowboys and the Packers seem to have trouble against the Niners lately.
I don't know what it is. Oh, jeez. Cowboys are just, jeez. I don't. So, do you predominantly read fantasy, or are there other genres you enjoy, or is fantasy
I
just
do,
like
yeah. So
where you feel most at home?
I probably read 90% fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and the only other genres that I'll that I'll really read is sci-fi, and then some, um, some historical fiction, sprinkled in there. But yeah, fantasy is definitely my bread and butter.
All right. Yeah, I've seen a few of your videos. Have you done one for Lies of Locke Lamora? No, that's the buddy read. Or have you done a video about the Lies of Locke Lamora?
I have not. So that was one of the books that I read before my YouTube channel. In fact, that was one of the first fantasy books that I read when I got back into it. So I read fantasy as a kid,
Mm.
and then got out of it when I was going through school and college, and then I got back into it with A Song of Ice and Fire, and then I feel like Lies of Locke Lamora was probably the next book I read. So very early on in my kind of like adult fantasy reading.
Yeah, I mean, I actually read it for the first time this year, and it sucks when that happens. When like you're having a buddy read for it right now, right? Because I'm on your
Yeah,
Discord.
yeah,
And I'm like, dang it! I read it in March. I'm reading the second one right now, and I keep getting distracted, but I'm enjoying it. It's just as fun as the first one.
yeah. No, it's a lot of people say that the quality really dipped down on the second one and third one, but I mean, I thought the third one was a little weaker, but the second one is fantastic.
Oh no, I'm really enjoying the second one because I'm like, really? Like this is pretty similar quality to me, though there isn't like any moments where I'm going, but I'm sure that might
Right.
happen later in the book. Don't
I think a
spoil.
lot of there is a thing out there where I feel like some people generally don't like anything like involving seafaring adventures, which is at
Oh
its
yeah,
heart what the
no,
second one
I
is.
get that. You know, sometimes you're out in sea. Like I don't love Moby Dick, for instance. Like I just couldn't get in. Maybe I'll read it again at some point, but I know there's a lot of people who don't like that book, and I don't love it. I have problems with it, but again, I haven't read
Yeah,
it in a long time. I know there's one called like the Bone Ships people tell me about because I like seafaring adventures, so maybe.
yeah. So the Bone Ships so the Bone Ships is the name of the first book of the Tide Child trilogy
Mm-hmm.
uh, by R.J. Barker, and I'm a huge fan. They're absolutely magnificent. I viewed all three of those books as top tier, and it's one of my favorite series I've ever read.
It's funny. There's like names in fantasy I get mixed up. Like there's KJ Parker, and then there's RJ Barker, and I'm like, God, this is gonna kill me.
Yeah, can you guys just name yourself an original first and last name? These initials. It's like everybody's trying to do the Tolkien thing, and
Like, so, yeah, Lies of Locke. I read that in March, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It's a great.
did you do the physical book or did you do audiobook?
Oh no, physical book. I got it right here. Let me pull it out.
So
Right here.
if you ever reread it, check out the audiobook. It's maybe the best fantasy audiobook that's ever existed.
I might actually read the whole trilogy, or I say trilogy. I know it's like gonna be 7 books if Scott
Yeah.
Lynch gets off his ass and writes them. But I know I already had some issues in the last couple years, so I'm not gonna poke too much fun. But
Yeah, I think he's getting back into it now, or at least he claims he is.
I know he said he's gonna put out some novellas, but I really love Lies of Locke Lamora. It's a real, or I really, or I just pulled out Red Seas Under Red Skies, but I'm enjoying this as well so far. It's really good, a lot of good intrigue, and has a lot of the stuff I enjoy about the first book.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, I look at it as it's just fun.
Oh yeah. I also love his like prose style and how he describes things.
Yeah,
Very
and I
nice.
mean, just it's humor is hard to translate into a book form. I find it's a lot easier in a visual form, but he nails it.
Yeah, like I also finished the First Law trilogy, which that's one like everyone always talks about, and it's like, oh man, First Law, like that's a real deal, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll see. I read the Blade itself, and I'm just sucked in.
Yeah, no, it's sometimes the ones that everyone tells you to read has some merit to it, and that's certainly up there with it.
Yeah, no, and now I'm reading. I was gonna take a break after I finished the first Law trilogy, but now I'm reading Best Served Cold since they just announced the movie, or they're going to be making a movie about it.
Yeah, I mean, and quite frankly, the second trilogy, in my mind, is even better than the first one.
That's
So
interesting. Well,
yeah,
after Best
keep
Served
empowering
Cold, I'm
through.
probably gonna go on my or not sabbatical, but I'm probably gonna take a break from Abercrombie again because I was
Yeah,
going to. I'm enjoying Best Served Cold though. I don't know if you've read the standalones, but
I have. Yeah, I
I'm
liked it. I mean,
enjoying these.
and honestly, I think it's probably the easiest of the books to translate into a movie. So I'm glad they're doing it.
Though to be fair, I'll admit I do have like one issue. Like the protagonist is not as interesting as the side characters so far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I find I have that problem with a lot of books.
Yeah, no,
You know,
it's funny. Like the side characters are like I get it. Sometimes you need like a straight man to deal with everyone's craziness, but sometimes
yeah,
that
and
doesn't translate well.
the other issue I had with that book is, it's very straightforward. You find out in the first chapter exactly what the whole what's going to happen in the book.
Mm.
And it's just a progression of marching through those steps. But thankfully, Abercrombie's such a good writer that doesn't really
Yeah, I
impact
thought
things
there
too
would be
bad.
more build up to the betrayal from how I had like seen reviews. Cause I like to get in the how do you put it, the mood to read it. So I'll like watch reviews to get a sense of what I'm gonna get into. Like I
Yeah.
thought there'd be like more build up. Nope, just immediately she gets
No, chapter
betrayed.
one.
Yep. Yeah, like I'm at the part where Giselle showed up, and I'm like, "Hey, how
Yeah.
you doing, buddy?" And then he gets knocked out, and chaos ensues. I'm like, God, even when he's trying to get side piece, he can't get a break. Poor guy. Um, yeah, no, but I enjoyed First Law, especially the third one. That went in a direction I did not expect.
Yeah, I hear from people that like it's got a predictable plot and the kind of the ending of it's predictable. I certainly didn't see it coming. That totally shocked me in a very good way.
Like I had a feeling like it wouldn't end like in a cozy kind of, how do you put it, a happy, clean ending, if you will. I
Right.
wasn't expecting that. I was expecting at least like a bittersweet ending. I was definitely not expecting that.
Yeah. No, yeah, it definitely shocked me.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, like, okay. It really went there, and I didn't expect it. So now I'm reading Red Seas Under Red Skies to lift my mood.
Yeah, it's definitely a more lighthearted book. I mean, although I mean those books can get pretty violent, but it's just more fun.
Oh yeah, I really enjoy the camaraderie between Locke and John. They're not just like kind of your standard smart ass thief, you know, because that
Yeah.
for me that would have got pretty old pretty fast.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I
Um,
mean, it's just the, I love those buddy stories, and they're,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah, no,
reading about,
they're good.
yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. By the way, I'm just
No, 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 just two there's something inherently fun about reading two best friends that have a dynamic relationship and that isn't just all nice and cozy at times. It's, I think it portrays, friendship in a really real way.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember I was reading like one where first one where it's like when they're kids and Jean gets mad at Locke for like he like insults his parents or something. He gets all mad at him, and like Locke tells him he's sorry, and it's like a like beautiful thing. I'm like, man, that's when I was like, oh man, this book's gonna be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because it's one of those books that kind of suck you in, if that makes sense. Like you're
Yeah,
so like you get
100%.
so invested, you just forget like, oh yeah, this is fictional. Which is the best kind of books for me.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of from start to finish. It sets things up in such a nice way. I love the usage of the flashbacks, which can get kind of boring at times with other books, but he's just such a gifted writer. I mean, he could really write about anything, and it would just kind of suck me in, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, I am thinking since I've got through Red Seas Under Red Skies, I'll just complete the. I don't want to say trilogy, but the books that are out right now. So I might read Republic of Thieves, but I've heard that it's not as good as the other two. I've heard some people bash Red Sea Under Red Skies too. I'm enjoying it. I don't see a difference between.
No, I mean it's the only negative I'd say about that third one, and I liked it a lot, is just it kind of abruptly ends.
Oh,
you're
I just heard it drags like towards like the middle. Like apparently, like it starts really good and then it just drags, and I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get that. I mean, I could have had that thing go on forever, but.
Well, yeah, because I like these characters, right?
Right, just put them in more situations.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like this is like this little book I got here. Like I don't love this copy because I always think of like those airport books you see.
Yeah.
But it's like 700 something pages, and that's kind of a longer book for me. So I mean, but I'm very entertained by their wacky antics.
Yeah.
I remember I was on a post the other day because I'm on some Facebook groups, and it's like, what's like the most satisfying like just comeuppance for a character? And I said Falconer from not really a death, but Falconer from Gentlemen Bastards.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Because one, maybe I'm just like a messed up maniac deep down, but like watching him like get tortured was like kind of satisfying to read that. And like Lynch was like, "Oh no, I was trying to show like they're kind of like grayish," and I was just like, "Well, if he said that, maybe he shouldn't have made such a loathsome character." Oh man, I love the Lies of Locke Lamora. It's one of my favorite reads this year. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I was looking forward to it because I'm like, a lot of people like it. I want to see how it is, and I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, it's even though I'm rereading it, it'll probably go down as one of my best reads of the year again.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But yeah, you like kind of Joe Abercrombie and Scott Lynch. I know one of the things I like about your channel that I've noticed that I've enjoyed about your channel is that you're not afraid to give. I don't want to say like you don't rip into books. Well, you do sometimes. I watched one you did that was I had a buddy who, even when I talk about stuff that I absolutely don't like Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, for instance, like he'll make like excuses for that. He hated this book. It was like the first binding or something. Am I right?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I hate it. It's the only time I've ever done a review where I was pretty ruthless.
I didn't get to the spoiler parts because I'm like, I don't know if I want to see spoilers for Name of the Wind because maybe I'll read that, but that's one of those I'm waiting on. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's really good. I mean, but in general, I mean I do, one of the things I mentioned early on, we were talking about what reasons I started a channel, and another big one was that I just kind of got sick of watching everybody praise everything, because that's not real life. There's no way that all these people just feel positive vibes about everything, and so I thought, I want to be known for honesty, and the best way I can do that is by legitimately saying when I don't like something, and I don't have to be rude about it, but I want people to know what I think is good and what I think is bad, and that if you just keep talking about good all the time, then people aren't going to really be able to trust your opinion, because there's no way that anybody reads books without having negative feelings about things sometimes.
I mean, I'll admit, I sometimes fall into this, but that's mainly just because I'd rather talk about books I enjoy.
Yeah.
Give my energy to that. Now, I have done negative reviews, and some I've enjoyed doing negative reviews for, but
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, and I think the bigger your channel gets, the more pressure there is to give those positive reviews. Um, because a lot of the books that I review, unless the author is like really, really big, there's a good chance the author is going to watch the review. And that feels, I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I like to make people feel good.
Mhm.
And, it definitely, if I'm reviewing a small little indie book, of course that author's going to be watching it. I would too if I was the author. Um, you want to see what people are saying about what you put a lot of your heart and soul into. And so, there's that pressure to say, let me soften what I was going to say, and then there's that additional pressure of, most of the books I read, I get sent to me for free. And that can influence you too.
Well,
You feel like
you're constructive, so I appreciate that as
yeah,
well. So you're not just going like, "This book freaking sucked,"
right.
nothing like that. Um,
Yeah.
you're more like, "I didn't care for this book. Maybe you'll like it, but I didn't." So
Yeah, I have heard from some authors that I have kind of torn into their book a little bit, where they've almost been like thankful, and they're like, well, clearly I would have enjoyed it more if you liked it, but I got a big boost in sales just from talking about it. And so it's like, okay, so I don't have to feel too bad.
yeah. I mean, I read The Black Tongue Thief. I saw you did a review on that, and you gave it like 4 stars. I'm like, okay, maybe you were a little too kind in that one, because that was kind of a 3-star read for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled because I loved the first half so much,
Mm-hmm.
um, that it definitely tempered my feelings about it. And I disliked the second half, pretty significantly. But just kind of remembering what that first half had made me feel like, I mean, I liked it, but I felt like there was so much more promise there. Like it could have been so much better. And clearly the author has the ability to make it better. But it just, for whatever reason, just fell flat.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't know if he had like a direction for the story. I've been talking to some other friends of mine about it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I liked the other book I read from that author called Those Across the River, which is about werewolves. Even
Oh, I never heard about.
though the ending kind of sucked, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, I mean, a bad ending can really sour you on things. Like, I'd clearly much rather read a book that started off weak and ended hot than the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, like Lies of Locke Lamora. I won't say it started like I won't say it was weak starting, but it's a bit slow going. But then
Agreed.
but then it just builds and it gets you're like, oh yeah, that's great.
Well, I mean, a lot of times you have this scenario where the slow build makes the second half even better because
Mm-hmm.
there's that tension building that you don't get that gratification of, and when it finally comes, it's that journey made it so much better.
Yeah. No, and I was so intrigued by the world and this kind of weird underground world that they kind of got in the Gentleman Bastard series that I'm like, all right, I'm in. I can wade through it.
Yeah.
Same thing with Red Season Red. I keep getting distracted though for some reason. I hope it's not because like the book's like boring or anything. Like no, it's still very entertaining. I'm enjoying it, but I don't know. Also, just stuff keeps coming up the last few weeks. So
Yeah, yeah.
like I started reading this in May, so I'm
Oh,
halfway
really?
through it. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I definitely have I mean, I'm kind of OCD about a lot of things in life, and reading's one of them where I kind of have to read a minimum amount each day, so I kind of fly through books.
Yeah, no, I go for like 60 a day. I have a friend who's more of a slow reader. He's like, my God, dude, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, I go for a page count each day, and I just kind of keep going till the end.
Yeah, I aim for about 160.
Oh my gosh, that's even more than me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really watch TV. And
I like to
so,
savor the experience, if that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, there's certainly some that I'll go slower on. That I really want to soak in everything, and it can be hard to go quicker. But it just kind of depends on the pros.
Yeah. No, I get that. But was it called The First Binding? That one that you really didn't like?
Yeah, it was. It's
Okay.
by R.R. Verdi, but it's just not only did I not like it, and I thought the writing was very poor, but it's just a ripoff. And I've never, I've read books that are very inspired by other works, but I've never
Yeah,
read
like
one
there's
that was like a
rip-off and then there's
scene for
rip-off.
scene.
I get it.
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, the entire book from start to finish was a ripoff, and it's like, oh, I'm not going to be, I don't have to feel bad at all about taking my gloves off on this guy.
Yeah, because like most of the negative reviews, or like the more like kind of like meh or negative reviews you've done, you're more constructive. But on that one, you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't care at all.
Thought it was funny. You were just like, oh man, I'm glad this is over.
Yeah, you're letting me have some fun here.
Yeah. Which I'm like, so you're not much of a DNF person, because I struggle with that.
I I've certainly gotten more into it lately, where it's just I don't want to waste my time, and
Yeah.
I feel bad about it because I have a channel, and I feel like people are looking to me to give my opinions on things, and especially my style of channel where I very openly say what I'm going to be reading in the month, and because I read a very consistent amount each day, I can kind of predict when I'm going to finish a book. And so all these people are like, "Oh, what'd you think about X?" And I'm like, I didn't even actually finish it. I can't really give you my opinion on it." So I always feel bad about that, but I also just, I'm not in this to make a bunch of money. I'm in it to have fun. If I'm not
Yeah.
having fun reading a book, why would I do it?
Yeah. I mean, oh man, like what are some like favorites that you've covered on your channel? Maybe I should ask that. I've seen like some 5-star reviews you've given, but I'm curious to hear like just from you, like what are some like
Yeah.
favorite stuff that you've covered on your channel so far?
So this year, I mean, I could say this year, my the the best book that I've read is The Grace of Kings, which is in the Dandelion Dynasty.
I've heard a lot about
Um,
that.
in fact, my favorite two books I've read this year are the first and second book from Dandelion Dynasty. They're just they're two of my top five books I've ever read.
Oh wow.
Um, it's just they're incredible. Sometimes I just read a book and I feel like it's like this author just like wrote this for me. It just
That's a rare thing.
but
Um, it's like Cowboy
uh,
Bebop for me, except that's an anime.
yeah. And then I recently read this book called The Wolf. It's
Heard that's
under the
good.
North.
Yeah, isn't that
What
like an indie book?
it is, yeah. This guy Leo Carew.
Mm-hmm.
It actually it so on my Patreon channel, everybody can pick a book for me to read, and then I spin a wheel at the start of the month, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever it lands on, I have to read. And that one got it, and I'm really because I never would have read it, but it's so good. Um, I've been really into The Wandering Inn lately, which is this enormous. It's the largest fantasy series of all time, and it's being written at in a hyper fast speed.
How
But
long is it?
um, I mean, I don't know in word count, but it's like 3 or 4 times bigger than the Wheel of Time.
Well, I meant
Um,
how many books there are. Or is it just like a single thing?
so it's a web serial
Oh,
that's being converted into books.
oh,
Um, and so I think there's 9 books out, and the books are like 1,500 to 2,000 pages each.
oh my
Um,
god!
but
Jeez!
if the but if all the books came out, it would for what it would be caught up to, it would be like 40 books long.
Oh my gosh!
So it's
I
it's obscenely long. I mean, the author comes out with 2 chapters a week, and the chapters are like 45 minutes long.
oh my gosh!
So it's obscene.
No, yeah, I tend to. I'm a weird kind of fantasy reader because I don't really like. I'm more hesitant when it comes to like longer series. Maybe it's not so weird because it's such a commitment, right? Like I like to either stick with trilogies or if it's something like Lies of Locke Lamora or something like that or Game of Thrones like that interests me. Like I'll read those, but yeah, like stuff like I don't know if you've read or have you read Malazan?
Yeah, I have. It's my favorite series.
Oh, that. Yeah, well, I don't mean to be like, oh, I'm kind of wary of this.
No, it's probably the most intimidating series you could ever read. Just because the length of it combined with the complexity of it uh, is 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 hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, I have a buddy who loves it, just loves it, and he's always telling me to go read it, and I'm like, dude, it's like 10 books, and like I don't know. Like I've heard like the first one he just throws so much at you. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I mean, I don't know, maybe someday, but
Yeah, it's hard. It's extremely rewarding, but it's one of those you love it or you hate it.
yeah, that's exactly what my friends told me. It's not there's no mixed feelings on that
Well,
one.
I think the harder part is you won't know if you love it until like 2 or 3 thousand pages in. So it requires an investment, which is tough for people. But luckily in fantasy, I mean, a lot of people, really are used to these long reads, and so it fits in decently with that genre. But it's a commitment for sure.
Yeah, or something like the Wheel of Time. I haven't read the Wheel of Time, and I mean I have friends who love it, and I know people who I respect who don't like it. So it's just kind of like, where am I gonna fall in on this?
Yeah, and on that one too, you can be you can just be kind of so on it. And it's long, and there's like 3 books in the middle, which are pretty much everybody agrees are not good. Um,
Yeah, I've heard
you know,
there's like a slump era of Wheel of
yeah,
Time.
yeah, yeah. What do they call it? The slog. Um, and it's like 2,500 pages of slog, and that's
Oh,
daunting.
jeez. Yeah, no, like one of my pet peeves when it comes to like fantasy is when people go, "Oh, wait till the second one, then it gets really good." I'm like, dude, I don't know if I want to go through like pages of crap in order to get to something I might actually like, unless
Right. When there's so many books out there that you could just pick up on page one, you're gonna like it.
yeah, or, something like now. It's like if it's something like Lies of Locke Lamora, I'm so intrigued by the world and these characters, and I'm fine with rolling along for the ride. But
Sure.
with other books, it's kind of different.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I mean, Dandelion one or Dandelion Dynasty. That's one a lot of people have told, or I've seen like around on BookTube. It's very popular apparently.
Yeah, I think it's gaining popularity too. Um, but it's just the pace is so fast from the get go. I mean,
Mm.
it's just you'll have I feel like in so many fantasy books it's intentionally slower. You'll have the characters will be talking about a plan to do something, and they'll be talking about the plan for a chapter, and then they'll spend a few chapters enacting the plan, and then you have a chapter of it kind of cooling down. And in Dayland Dynasty, it's like, all right, on this page we're talking about the plan, on the next page we're going to do it, and the next page we're going to do something else. It's just it doesn't let off the gas.
Well, that's good to know, and plus it's a trilogy, so I'm probably more likely to read it than.
It's actually 4,
Oh, it's 4.
but it's done
Okay.
now. I think
Oh,
they call
okay.
that a quartet or something.
Yeah, quartet. I don't know why I thought it was a trilogy. Oh. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. I think like cut out for some reason. Something happened. I don't know. We're good.
Yeah, we're all good.
Oh, okay. I was like, what the hell was that? You said it's a quartet. Okay, I guess I just blanked there. I thought it was a trilogy. Yeah, if it's like a quartet, I'm probably more likely to read it. So.
Yeah, I mean quartets are so rare in fantasy. It feels like it's either trilogy or like a dozen.
Yeah, I know. There's no like there's either like 7 to 10 or even 15 if
Yeah.
you're Robert Jordan, or it's like a trilogy. I'm like, oh. What's fun, what was interesting about when I read the first Law is that like there's like the plot is not that important until like the third one.
Yeah,
But
I
you're
think
so interested in the characters, so you know, like I'm down for the ride, like you know.
yeah, that pulls out a lot of people because the first book arguably doesn't really have much of a plot to speak of. It's just kind of a big extended prologue. Um, but thankfully, the character writing, like you said, is just so masterclass. I mean, in the first Law, with one of the first chapters, you have a character for a whole chapter going down a set of stairs. Uh, you know,
uh,
and I was enraptured.
yeah, no, I love Glockta, despite myself. He's an interesting. Like I'm kind of tied between him and Logan as my favorites because
Yeah,
that might be like a normie pick, but I don't know. They're the most interesting out of everybody, I think.
yeah. I mean, those are definitely my two favorites. Glockta gets it from me, even though I don't want to like him, because I just feel like it says something about me that I actually am rooting for this torturer. But
I
I
don't know if
can't
I
help but like
root
him.
for him, but I do feel like sorry for him, and you're really invested by his story,
Yeah,
even though he's like a. I don't want to say he's a sociopath because he can feel empathy, but he's just
yeah. Unequivocally, he's a horrible person.
yeah, no, he's not a good guy. It's weird because I was talking. I don't know if you ever watched the Fantasy Network on YouTube. I don't know how much
Yeah,
YouTube you watch, but
I don't
he
watch
talked.
much. But before I had a YouTube channel, I did watch a fair amount, and I did watch that channel.
Well, I had him on this show, and we talked a bit about the first Law, and it was kind of like we kind of talked about. It's sort of interesting that it's about like characters who want to change, but they can't because of either circumstances or their own flaws and whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Um, all of the characters in the series see themselves as greater than they have the ability to turn into, which in some ways mimics a lot of real life, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a big reason people like it is that real life is not as easy and cozy as most books would have you believe, and the ability to change who you are uh, is a lot harder than it may seem.
Yeah, it's hard. um, yeah, like Logan and Glockta especially, like they definitely are people who want to do better than they have done, but they just can't because of either circumstances they can't control or just their own, personal problems.
Right. Yeah, and I mean Logan especially is this guy that at least even when he gets introduced, he's already going through that change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you're getting him later on in his story, but he keeps getting drawn in. I mean, he's probably the best person in the series, and we're talking about a guy that's a brutal murderer.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's so weird because like he's known as the Bloody Nine. He's just like big. He's like big bad, kind of almost like this big bad wolf kind of character. And you meet him, he's kind of like this goofy dad. You know, he's just he's always
Yeah, and
saying these like weird dad jokes, and everyone's like, oh god, you know.
yeah, you're like, why does this guy have the reputation he has? And without spoiling anything, when you find out why, it's kind of like this. Oh shit, here we
Yeah,
go.
exactly. You're like, oh, I didn't know you had it in you. Also, like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, yeah, good.
I was just gonna say, I also like some of the other northern guys, like Dogman.
Yeah, that whole group is hilarious. Just and trying to put the pieces together when they clearly lack some central leadership.
Yeah, I mean, Three Trees had him under control for a while.
Yeah, yeah, for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good series. There's a lot to talk about, when it comes to that stuff. I know, I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I want people to go read it, and plus I already did reviews for him, so.
Right. Yeah, people need to go into it without knowing much. I think there's a lot of trust you have to have sometimes, and I find the best way to go into a lot of fantasy books is to know as little as possible. Just trust that it'll be good.
But yeah, no, that ending really took me by surprise.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting anything like that, but it is what it is.
I think you're gonna love the second trilogy also.
Yeah, I mean, after Best Served Cold, I'm probably gonna take a break because I don't want to get burned out on Abercrombie. So I'm gonna wait.
Yeah.
I do want to read the other two standalones. I'm very interested in Red Country because I really like westerns, and I heard that's kind of his take on the western. So I'm like, oh, that could be fun.
Yeah, he was a big western reader, and I actually went back and recently read the book that he claims is the best book of all time that influenced that one, which is Lonesome Dove.
I've heard so many people talk about that book. I need to read it at some point.
It's incredible. It's amazing, and I don't really quite get the draw. It seems like a lot of fantasy readers are really into it, and
it's probably because
I can't quite figure out why, but it's just good.
I've noticed a lot of fantasy readers also like gravitating towards like Cormac McCarthy, who's one of my favorite authors. So, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I've never read any Cormac McCarthy. I am sometime in the near future. I'm going to be reading Blood Meridian. That'll be my first step into it.
I mean, you're a brave man if you start there first. I would start with like The Road or No Country, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Because Blood Meridian is just so. Like, there's so much going on in that book. I don't want to spoil it, though. That's one you have to read for yourself.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to checking him out, because so many people say good things about him.
Yeah, he's an acquired taste. Like, he doesn't write like other authors write, if that makes sense. Like, he doesn't use, like, syntax or quotations, nothing like that. So, there you go.
Yeah.
Just wanted to warn you before you get in and be like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, no, I don't know. It feels like one of those books I feel like I know I'm going to like. But, I've certainly said that about books that ended up being horrible. But I feel like there's got to be something to it. So many people talking good about it.
Like, what are some of the other books you've disliked? Because I've seen a couple, but I haven't
So this year, I really disliked Nevernight from Jay Kristoff.
Yes, I've heard he's a controversial figure.
Yeah, just hated it. I feel like the one I got the most slack for was I just hated the Dragonbone chair from Tad Williams. Just
not your thing, or just bad, or
no, just not my thing. I mean,
not your thing.
It just, I could tell why people liked it, but the pacing was so slow for me that, and I don't mind books that are slow, but I got 600 pages into it without really getting gripped, and that's too long for me. I gotta have some things that are driving me back to it, and maybe I'll get back to it at some point, because I hear so many good things about that writer, but it just didn't click with me right.
Yeah, Tad Williams is another one I've heard about. I know George R. R. Martin likes him, which,
Yeah, I mean, tons of people. I mean, he's very influential for modern fantasy writers. I really dislike The Gunslinger from Stephen King.
Yeah, that's an acquired taste as well. The Dark Tower series.
Yeah, have you read it?
Yeah, a long time ago. It's been a few years, but yes.
Everyone tells me that the first one isn't great, that I really got to read the second one to form my opinion. So I am gonna I am gonna read the second one here in the next month or
Eh.
so. But I don't really have a lot of high hopes for it.
I like the first one. Like, you can read the first one, and, I mean, you didn't like it, so, whatever. But, or that sounds bad, but, like, that's fine, but, yeah, no, Dark Tower is a beast on its own.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I just ultimately, and it's kind of a controversial opinion, but I just don't. I've never really read a Stephen King book that I really liked, and I just feel like he's not an author that is for me.
yeah, I get
His
that.
writings,
He's not for everyone.
and I
I
don't think
enjoy
any
King.
author is. Otherwise, they'd be, the biggest thing that's ever existed. But just something about that writing style just doesn't vibe with me well.
If I remember right, he was kind of like, like, even he's not, like, that big on the gunslinger, but, won't say, like, it's, like, a brilliant book by any means, but, like, I thought it was a good, like, setup for that world.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about vibe. I feel like because the plot is just so fever dreamish. You're like, what is going on and why, and you know, just you got to roll with it. I almost feel like it's one of those where if you read it on a reread, you'll probably be like, okay, I get it now. But on a first read, it's just it asks more questions than it answers. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's that Dark Tower is actually one of those I'd like to reread at some point to see if it, like, holds up. Um, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you'd like The Stand, even though the climax of that is not good. Stephen King has a problem with ending things.
Yeah,
So,
I did read The Stand, and it was okay. It was just okay.
okay.
I felt like in all the Stephen King books I've read, and I think I've only read three of them now. It's just the endings are atrocious for
Yeah, I
me,
know, he's not.
and
He struggles with endings. Now, he has ended things well. Like, It has a great ending. And, like, 11/22/63 is a great ending. And there's some other
yeah,
stuff I could probably think of, but yeah, he has a problem with ending things, and maybe he's just not for you, man. I don't.
well, yeah, I keep wanting him to because so many people say good things, but ultimately, not every book is for not every author is for every person.
Maybe read, like, some of his novellas. That maybe could, help. I don't know. But maybe it's just not for you.
Yeah,
That's what it sounds like.
yeah, I'll keep trying some, and there's so many of his books that are in my Patreon TBR contest that eventually some of them will win, and I'll have to read them. So we'll see.
So, like, what are some other books you hope to cover in the future? Is there any ones, like, you're particularly excited about?
Yeah,
Where you're like quivering in your, what's the phrase? It's like,
yeah. No, I
you're,
mean, so the first two Dynasty books are two of my favorite books I've ever read. So reading the next two are I just cannot wait. Um, you know, I really want I've been reading The Sun Eater. I don't know if you've read those books.
I had a buddy who
Um,
read those and he didn't like them.
I just love them.
Yeah,
And
nah.
so I'm reading the second one right now, and it's just every bit as good as the first one. Um,
Maybe I'll
I'm
read it at
reading
some
the
point, but I've heard it compared to Dune, and I didn't really care for Dune all that much, so I don't know.
I can see a lot of Dune influences there. Um, I uh, I definitely am looking forward to reading more from the Rift War saga, old series. But I just found out about it, and I just think they're wonderful. Um, just loved the first two books in that, and
Hmm.
definitely want to keep going there. I'm in the middle of so many series. I'm probably kind of like in the middle of like eight or nine different series that I got to kind of keep working through.
I see. It's interesting.
Yeah, I do a lot of. I think to keep people interested on the YouTube channel, I think people get kind of bored if I keep reading the same series back to back to back.
Yeah,
So
no.
I split it up a lot. Um, I definitely will never read the same series, two of them in the same month.
So are you
So
going
I
to? Oh, sorry.
no, but I split up series. I'll read them like once every month or two or three.
Hmm. I was just gonna ask. So, like, when you're done with this buddy read of Lies of Locke Lamora, are you then going to make the video about it? Because I'm really
Yeah,
curious to see what you'll think about that. Oh,
yeah. So I just did a video recently for the blade itself, even though that was a reread. And I do the same thing where I'll give my initial reaction, but I kind of do it from a different context of like, here's what I thought about it originally. Here's what I think about it now. With several years of you know in between, and in general, like I find that I like books more on a reread, especially books that I've already liked. Um, I with the Blade itself, I give the Blade itself a 4 out of 5 when I first read it, but when I just read it for a reread, it was a top tier 5 out of 5 for me. Um, so yeah, I'll definitely review every book I read, whether it's reread or not.
yeah. I'm bad at rereading because I kind of like to move on to the next book and whatnot. There are books I want to reread though, like there's one called Black Leopard, Red Wolf I really enjoyed. I want to reread that again and see if it holds up. Um, just a bunch of stuff. It's starting to pile up. I actually want to reread Lord of the Rings at some point, see if my views have changed over the years since my fantasy taste has changed.
Yeah, I I think Lord of the Rings is one of the last series that I read before I started my YouTube channel, so I didn't get a
Like
video
for the
out
first
for them.
time, or was it a reread?
A reread, but the first time I read it was like 20 years before.
Oh,
So I barely remember my read from it. So it was pretty fresh for me.
so like, what were some early reads for you, in terms of like fantasy? If you don't mind my asking.
Um, so the first fantasy series I got into was Redwall, by Brian Jacques. Um, and I mean, Lord of the Rings was very early. Um, I I don't know that you could call it fantasy. It's almost like I think it's fantasy, but I was a big Animorphs fan when I was a little kid. Um, and then I took a huge break. And then when I got back into it, it was A Song of Ice and Fire and like Stormlight Archive. And then I kind of went off to the races with reading pretty exclusive fantasy stuff.
Sanderson's another one I'm kind of hesitant to get into. Not because he does like trilogies, and I generally read trilogies, but like it's because people talk about him so much, maybe that there's just that little contrarian part of me that's like, no, I don't want to read him. At least not right now. Maybe
Yeah,
someday.
yeah, no, I could see that, but I mean, there's a reason Stormlight's by far the most popular fantasy series out there right now. Um,
Oh man, the one
there's
that really
definitely
interested me was Mistborn, because that concept really intrigued me.
the problem with Mistborn, I find, and I like Mistborn, but is that it definitely has a lot of YA elements to it,
Oh boy.
and I'm not a big YA guy. Um, so it's definitely blends the line between adult and young adult, and
So is
so
that like dumb relationship drama?
there's some relationship drama, and just it's a bunch. There's the violence is very toned down, and you're not going to hear profanity, and it's made so a parent wouldn't have a problem having their kid read the book,
Yeah. I mean, I
but
don't
it's really
mind
good.
YA. I mean, just as long as there's not like love triangles abound and it just gets dragged
No,
out
there's
for books on books.
no, there's some relationship stuff, but it's pretty muted.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not
And
bad.
but no, it's another series that is insanely popular.
I mean, I like watching some of Brandon Sanderson's YouTube content because he seems like a interesting guy.
Yeah, you got to try them out. I mean, you just see what the hype's all about.
Yeah, maybe at some point. Like, I'm definitely wanting to start with like Mistborn first because I don't know if I really want to like dive in because uh seems that our oh uh oh oh sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Or, well, no. You alright? Everything good? Oh. Gotten some technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. I can hear something.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Alright. That kind of worried me there. You doing alright?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all good. And then I've got about 5 minutes until I have to run to a meeting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm sure we can wrap it up
Cool.
soon. So, yeah, no, it's, but back to Mistborn real quick before we get to, like, wrapping up stuff.
Yeah.
That's one I am interested in trying because I like the concept of it.
It's fun, and the magic system's awesome. The little twists and turns it takes are ingenious. So everyone's got to read it.
Yeah, I've heard it's yeah, I know Brandon Sanderson's very big on like world building and magic systems, which could be interesting. But,
yeah, no, it's a must read for fantasy fans for sure.
Again, like I said, maybe someday, but again, it's like that kind of like contrarian part of my brain is just like, now, because he's like, like everybody's got an opinion, or well, anybody who's read fantasy has an opinion on Brandon Sanderson, so I guess it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I find personally that I really like him, but the more I read, the more he kind of goes down my list a little bit, but I still am a big fan, and I'll read everything he puts out.
Fair enough. I know he's been putting out like secret projects. I do envy his work ethic though.
Oh, it's insane. I wish more authors had the same work ethic as him.
I know. I'm like, dude, how? He's like, I got 6 projects. I'm like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah, no, he's a guy that has a problem that he's turned into a superpower.
Yeah, no, I don't know if you watched like Daniel Green before he went into the kind of direction his channel's at now, but his reaction to like all the projects that he was in, I was like, that was me. That's pretty much how I react. I'm like, how did he do all this?
Yeah, you're making everybody else look bad, man.
Yeah, I know Scott Lynch and George R. R. Martin are just like sitting there, just fuming.
Yeah, no, they're. I watched a pretty funny panel that George R. R. Martin did with Stephen King on it, and he was just like, Stephen, how the hell do you write so fast?
Well, the thing is, I think they write to get it out, at least with like Stephen King, and then like he'll edit it later and put it out. Like, where guys like George R. R. Martin are more like, wanting to. They think more about what they're writing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think people like Stephen King, he treats it like a job.
Yeah.
I am going to be writing on these times of the day, and I will, it's my career. And where somebody like George R. R. Martin, although he is a very successful author, he doesn't treat it like a job. He treats it like a hobby that he is incredibly good at.
Yes. Yeah, or I don't know. My issue with Martin is that sometimes he goes on for too long, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you'll get like 4 pages about food descriptions.
Well, not just that, but it's like, Game of Thrones had a great story about Eddard Stark, and then it just keeps going. You're just like, okay, could have ended there, but I digress.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But we're approaching the hour mark. Matt, thanks for coming on, man. Is this the first podcast you've been on?
It is. Yeah, I generally don't really collab with other people because I work in the day and I'm on the West Coast, so it's hard for me to link up with people because by the time I'm usually free, it's too late. So yeah, first one.
Well, very nice. Thanks for coming and chatting with me. This has been good fun.
Thanks so much. Yeah, you too. I'll talk to you soon.
If you want to share your, social media real quick before you leave, if you want, you can.
Yeah. No, just check me out at Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews on YouTube. Yeah, love to have you subscribe.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man. If you have to leave, you can leave. I'll wrap up here.
All right. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.
All right. You take care.
Bye.
Also, see you guys later, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Goodbye.